You've been cultivating a long time, and you've grown organically. You've used a lot of different lines in a lot of different ways. How are you currently cultivating right now? What media are you using? What size?
I grow in cocoa. I grow in 5 gallons. I use 100% cocoa. I'm running the Pro Line. I hand mix daily. I don't have a dosatron or any type of automated feeding. So I hand mix my nutrients daily and hand feed. I have drippers set up, but, I mix it and hand feed, just drop the pump in there. I believe that your plants like the nutrients fresh. So I like to mix them daily. I don't really believe in the big batch tanks. Maybe that's where something that I do a little different than a lot of people. I believe in mixing the nutrients every day.
You're hand feeding every day?
Yes.
How do you like that compared to drippers?
Well, I have drippers, but I just, I mix in my 50 gallon and I drop my aereo mix in there and it feeds the whole room. But in terms of like an automated system, I like that better because I feel I have a more hands-on approach with my garden, and being more hands-on, you're more susceptible to notice issues sooner. If you just have everything's automated, you're probably not up and close and personal as much with your plants as you could be. So by me, I even like to hand water sometimes. I ain't gonna lie to you. Sometimes I skip the drippers altogether. I'll go in there and hand water just so I can be underneath each plant and examine it as I'm watering. And a lot of people will say, well, you can't do that when you scale up, but you can. It just depends on how much work you want to do.
No, I've got guys that are hand watering 1,400 liters.
There you go.
On Athena Pro Line, and they're making it happen. Cocoa, 5 gallon pots, just like you. Hand watering, 1,400 lights. It's a lot. So you're doing mainly 1 feed a day, 1 drench.
One feed a day. I do kind of do like a dry bag technique by feeding less water in the beginning. So let's say I have 100 plants in a room or 75 plants in a room. The first couple of weeks, they might get 50 to 100 gallons. And as we get heavier into flower, I might top out at about 150. And then as we get later into flower, I'll bring that down, back to about 175 daily. Just really depends on the feedback I'm getting from them.
So you're just doing regular hand watering and veg, full saturation.
Yes.
Right. And then week 1 through 3, are you stacking a little harder, or how's that? Or are you watering less?
Watering less. Less water in the first 3 weeks. I would say like 50 to 100 gallons a day.
Okay.
And then in like week 3 through 6, probably upwards of 150 gallons a day.
After week 3.
Right.
Do you do a lot of runoff tests?
Every day.
Have you seen the new runoff guide we did?
I have not.
Go take a look at it right there. It's after Pro Line. So we did this. It's a really cool chart.
I believe that's like one of the key factors to growing quality is monitoring runoff.
That's what I was going to ask you.
EC and pH. Yeah, I keep things within a certain range, and the plants seem to love it. And, this is about what my runoff looks like. I usually keep my runoff the entire time. I never let it get over 6.
Yeah, so that's what we got. So you got pH of feed, 3 EC, week 1 through whatever in veg, and then week 1 through 3 in flower. We're feeding a 3 EC, but our runoff's a 6 to a top out of a 7 EC. Do you think that's a little too high, or what?
I don't think 7 is too high. I've honestly had my media EC get all the way up to 9, 10 without any issues. And the reason for that is by giving it adequate runoff. So you can let that PC this last run, I really let the EC get up there, kind of testing to see like how far I could push it. And I found that as long as I gave adequate runoff, like 30 to 40% runoff, I wasn't getting any burn at all from that. So
okay.
The only thing on this chart that I would honestly change would be, especially growing in cocoa, I would adjust the pH. I keep my pH between 6.2. 6
and 6.2. And we got 5.8 to 6.1.
Right. And the reason why I like my pH a little bit higher. If you look at the nutrients that cannabis absorbs through that pH range, it's actually, they absorb a little bit more like boron and magnesium and like the higher pHs, and they absorb the same amount of all the other nutrients at 5.8. So why not feed it a little bit more where it's getting a little bit more of everything as well as what it was getting at 5.8. This is my logic there.
What about, have you ever grown in Rockwool?
No, I've never grown in Rockwool. I went from soil to cocoa, and I kind of just fell in love with cocoa. Cocoa can be a little bit more forgiving than Rockwool from what I understand, which is why I like it. So yeah, if there's some EC or pH fluctuations, cocoa can handle that versus Rockwool. I just don't want to fuck everything up.
What do you think about the runoff numbers as far as in flower on the EC a week 4 through 6, 5 and 6 EC runoff numbers?
I think those are good numbers. Personally, I never really let my EC get over 6.
Okay.
Unless I'm purposely doing it to kind of test to see things. But on average, I keep it between I feed it 3.5, so I keep it between 4.5, like 6, 6.5. It doesn't really ever touch 7.
And then flush out week 7, 8, 4 to 5 EC, 3 to 3.5 EC week 8 on your runoff.
I think starting at like week 7, my EC is usually around 6, and I start to bring it down daily by like a point or a couple points. So if my runoff is at like 4 at week 7, each day I'll bring it down like 0.2 until we get down to the end where it's at like 1 or 0 or a half a point, half an EC or something. That's usually what I do. Bring it down slowly the last couple weeks.
Why do you think runoff is so important?
That's how you can tell when you're, what to do next, in my opinion. So by testing runoff today, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. And so if I don't test runoff today, how do I know what I'm doing tomorrow? That's really all it boils down to for me. If I test runoff and I notice EC's a little high, a little low, pH high or low, I make my adjustments accordingly, and I always try to keep things within the range. That's what I was saying. I kind of just stick to the fundamentals. I don't really do anything spectacular. I'm not feeding them like, unicorn shit or anything. And I just keep things simple, man. I have my ranges that I like, EC, pH ranges that I like to keep everything at during flower, and that's just my main focus is just keeping things there. So that's why I test runoff every day. So I know, if I need to make even the slightest adjustment, I can make it the next day.
Would you adjust pH if you saw
absolutely
a lower pH come
absolutely
out? You would adjust it to a higher
100%.
pH.
So if pH is coming out 5.8, I'm feeding at 6.4.
Okay.
Until pH is adjusted accordingly. So the next day I might test it again and it might come out at like 6.0. So I'll go in again at 6.4.
Yeah.
And then when it's like at 6.2, optimal for me is if I'm going in at like 6.2 and it's coming out at 6.4, that's perfect. That means everything, all the available nutrients is being taken up by the plant.